All right. What are the fans saying, especially after that disappointing goalless draw against Madagascar?
Well, the fans only the complaints of the fans, Udoka, I have to be honest with you, only lasted about 24 hours because Ivan Nelson released the book and it took over the entire conversation. but um, and then of course yesterday Asamoah announced his retirement. So there hasn't really been a lot of time for people to vent like that. But I think most of the criticism that has come the way of the team has been that they haven't played with enough synergy. It doesn't look like there's enough chemistry in the team. And, a lot of people are very disappointed that given that Ghana has a new coach now, the FA has not put another friendly in place, especially for this window. And they've only just played one game, while other teams like Senegal, Tunisia, Algeria, who have already qualified, are still playing friendly matches to try and fine tune their team. Because don't forget, after that September international window, you basically have two more windows, and then the AFCON will come in January. So Chris Heaton doesn't have enough time to build a team. So every window must be taken full advantage of. The GFA has not done that. So this window, there's no friendly match. They've gone to Madagascar. They were very, very disappointing. And a lot of talking point. First one, I think many people were very surprised by the selection of the head coach because I think Andre Ayew starting that game was a bit of a surprise, but it was an even bigger surprise that he lasted the entire 90 minutes while there were probably younger, more enterprising players on the bench. Like Kudus Mohammed, who's been one of Ghana's best players, he was put on the bench until the 80th minute. It made absolutely no sense, and you look at other players like Raphael Yeboah, Ransford Yeboah, Koningsdorfer. He's been invited to the national team 6 times now. He's never been given a debut. Plays in Germany, scored a lot of goals. Osman Bukhari was one of the better performances for Red Star Belgrade. He was put on the bench. And it was a big surprise because Chris Hughton, in his second game against Angola in that last international break, one of the things people gave him credit for was his boldness in the team selection. In that second leg, he made substitutions in the second half. That brought massive changes. Ghana were behind. The changes brought newer players, younger players, and also a lot more energy, a lot more hunger and drive about their performance. And they managed to secure 1-1 draw because Ghana were trailing. They got the equalizer. And so a lot of people expected him to have built on that and started those players in the next game. But he completely undid the work that he did in the previous game. Started certain players that just simply didn't have enough energy or enough drive to try and get over Madagascar. And Madagascar are the worst team in that group. They have just 1 point. And the 1 point they got from that group was the one that they got against the Black Stars. So, it's not been smooth sailing for Chris Hughton. He's now supervised 3 matches. He's got just 1 win and 2 draws. And this is the first time since I've started actively covering the Black Stars that I have seen Ghana go into the last game of AFCON qualifying without already having booked their ticket. So it's been very underwhelming and the fans have not been happy.
Very true. Now, there's always this major comparison between Nigeria and Ghana when it comes to jollof rice. Now, with the national team, the same thing actually happens because the fans over there in Ghana are complaining about Andre Ayew, while some fans in Nigeria are still talking about the selection of team captain Ahmed Musa and the coach's selection as well on how they play their football. But looking at how Ghana has performed from the World Cup to the AFCON tournaments, and of course, these are qualifiers now. It looks like there's been a lot of inconsistency with the way the team played. There's no formation. There's no tactical approach to the game. And the fans just want something better because if you take it back to when Asamoah Gyan actually played football, you could tell that Ghana had a lot to offer. But now it feels like everybody seems to be showboating and the coaches do not know how to manage these stars. But still, they still want to get a lot of these players who have not chosen their nationality yet, talking about the teams that they want to play for. Why not look at what we have at the moment in Ghana and improve on these players rather than looking for extra players to put into the team?
Doc, I'll be completely honest with you, and I agree that there's a lot of parallels between Ghana and Nigeria. I know Nigeria also didn't play an international friendly this window,
Yeah.
and they should have, to be honest. Any serious country thinking about winning the AFCON should be serious about preparing their teams. And yes, the Andre Ayew Ahmed Musa examples are absolutely spot on as well. I actually do think that the qualifying for the World Cup, beating Nigeria to qualification, actually I think it did more harm than good in that it kind of papered over massive cracks in this Black Stars team. Because you have to remember, Ghana finished bottom of the group at the African Cup of Nations in January 2022,
True.
only to beat Nigeria 2 months later in March and qualify for the World Cup. But in that period, since then, Ghana has struggled to win games convincingly. In fact, if you take between the period when Ghana got kicked out of the AFCON without winning a game for the first time in the history of the country, the entire year of 2022 up until the World Cup, Ghana won 2 matches. That's how bad it has been. And those 2 games that they won, of course, Nigeria, there was no victory. They just qualified on away goal rule. Then they played AFCON qualifiers. They only beat they only beat Madagascar 3-0 at home. And then they didn't beat the Central African Republic. Then they went to a 3-nation tournament in Japan and got beaten by Japan. Then they beat Chile on penalties. That doesn't count as a victory. And then you go on, and then you realize the only other win that they recorded was when they beat South Korea at the World Cup out of 3 games. And since that win in the group stages against South Korea, they have come here and they have beaten Angola 1-0. It took a 94th minute winner for them to get the win, and then 2 draws followed after that. So
Yeah.
the win against Madagascar, the win against South Korea, and then the win, of course, against Angola. Just 2 victories in the last 16 months or so of football. It's been awful run for the Black Stars, and they've used 2 different coaches. And I think the biggest problem is not necessarily the quality of players, because I think that if you look at this Ghana team overall, there is enough quality. There are players that are playing at the highest level, but when they come to the national team, they're absolutely piss poor. And some players are getting more stake than others. Jordan Ayew and his brother, Jordan maybe, probably deserves to still be playing. His brother Andre Ayew, maybe not. But the 2 of them have been scapegoated an awful lot, while the likes of Thomas Partey and Daniel Amate, who are playing at the highest level in the Premier League, are getting an easy pass. Meanwhile, they have been putting up some very, very awful performances for the national team. It's like, when it's really important for them to step up, it almost looks like they're hiding. Look at Abdul Salih Samed, and I'm sure you know him. He was named Get French Football Midfielder of the Season in the French League 1. He helped Lens qualify for the Champions League. He had an absolutely blistering season in France. This guy plays alongside Thomas Partey. On paper, that should be one of the best midfields on the continent. These 2 guys go against Madagascar, and they can't string passes together. So look at Kudus Mohammed. Wonderful season he's had at Ajax. When he's come to the national team, the last 2 games against Angola, he didn't really live up to expectation. A record signing for Southampton was Kamaldeen Sulemana. He went inside the last day of the season, he scored a brace against Liverpool. He starts against Madagascar. He completed 7 dribbles. Not a single one of them was productive. So when you look around the team, there is decent quality, because even Dennis Odoi plays in the Champions League for Club Brugge. You understand? There's Tariq Lamptey, who plays in the Premier League. There is an awful lot of quality all around that team. However, it's almost like there's a mental block when they come to the national team. They can't put decent performances together. And it's opening up the debate about what this country needs in terms of a style going forward. Because I think one of the biggest problems that we've had in recent years, and I would say maybe in the last 5-6 years, Ghana has not really had a defined style of football. And when I say defined style, of course, Ghana is known for being this quick passing, possessive-based football team.
Yeah.
But this country has also achieved success playing in a much more defensive style, like under Milovan Rahivac during the 2010 African Cup of Nations when Ghana got to the final. They beat Nigeria in the semi-final. They were famously nicknamed the One Goal Project team. That particular system or style got Ghana to the quarterfinals of the World Cup the same year.
All right.
At the moment, so at that time, Ghana had a distinct style of football. Under Kwesi Appiah, Ghana has a very distinct style of football. They would outpossess you. They'll play brilliant football. That may not have brought trophies, but it brought significant fear into the opponents. And Ghana always had a decent run. Right now, Ghana are struggling to qualify for the African Cup of Nations, and they're playing some of the most horrible football I have ever seen Black Stars play. It's almost like you just called a bunch of 11 players together and asked them to kick football for the first time.
All right.
It's nothing coherent about the way they play
We can
no
actually
hunger,
go.
no drive, and it's almost distressful. If you
I totally agree. Totally agree with you.
Watching the Black Stars play football.
The fans are not too excited. I'm very, very sure about that. And I know we're pressed for time. We would have loved to go on with this conversation. But of course, we will have Fentuo another time to give us more on this because, yes, the fans are not happy. And the former manager talking about Ivram Grant also came out to say that, look, when he was there being the Ghana coach, there was a lot of disunity and it feels like the fans were not supporting what he was doing with the team. But let's see what happens in coming days for the Ghana Football Association and, of course, the Black Stars of Ghana.